All right, guys, let's talk about plan forms for Autosport. Well, MIL spec. This is a MS 3476A 2461P compared with two Autosports here. The middle Autosport is a AS 614-35SN, so plan forms of 1435 on the middle one. On the one on the right, it's an AS0 because it's flanged, AS0 24-35SN. So it's got sockets, N means red, identification. So there's a lot more to talk about on the part numbers here, but just been talking about the plan forms. On the 24-61, that's the plan form. On the smaller Autosport, it's a 1435, and on the larger one, it's a 2435. So as you can see here, with the MS 3476A 24-61P, this is just happens to be 61 pins and it's shell size 24, whereas these here 14-35 plan form and the one on the right 24-35 plan form. Just by looking at these, you can see that this, the second part in the plan form, in this case the 35 and the 35 are the same, but obviously this one has a lot more terminals, a lot more ways, okay? Even though on the MIL spec the 2461 happens to have 61 way. So that number in the plan form doesn't always correlate to how many ways the connector is. All right, so talking about these plan forms in here, this is the Series 2 MIL spec, your commonly used 2461. This is 61 terminals, 61 ways, and a shell size 24. Let's zoom in here so you can see the letters. So terminal 1 in this connector is the capitalized A, the big A. Then it goes capital A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, O, etc. It goes around counterclockwise, okay, until you get to the capital Z. And then it drops down one row and it's a small a. It's a lowercase a. Goes around again, okay, T, U, V. And we drop down another one, T, V, W, right? And then we go to double A, but it's a capitalized double A. So back to double A, double B, double C, double D, etc. We go around again. And in this case, we go all the way to the center. We're still double capital letters. Now compared to the Autosport next to it, which is Autosport plan form 1435, this one here in the, let me find my deepening tool here. This one here this is the number one terminal. So this one here goes clockwise, okay, and it has a nice little white line here to keep you organized. Whereas with the MIL spec connector, really what's helpful is if you print out the plan form. And I have a link to this on my site under the MIL spec connectors. Print out the plan form, okay, so that way you can blow it up real large and help you navigate that little maze there. Okay, now if we go to the third connector, so MIL spec, Autosport 14-35, we go to a 24-35 plan form. So this one here, another Autosport. Even though the plan forms on the Autosports are higher density usually, they're labeled a little bit easier than the MIL spec connectors. So in this case, the plan form terminal 1 is right here. It goes down terminal 7, and usually they'll give you like a little call out halfway through. In this case, there's a 4 there. So 7's here, then it goes back up to 8, goes back down to 14, go back up to 15 and work your way down. Now, I will say this, that if you're building these, okay, no problem, right? You just go 1 through, in this case, however many terminals are in this thing. Give you an example, there's a 70, there's an 81, okay? You would think that this is pretty easy to keep track of, but what you're not accounting for is that on these connectors, you're building from the center. So that complicates things. There's more to talk about on the plan forms, but just wanted to give some of you who have not seen what the insertion side looks like for the terminals on these connectors. Of course, on this mil-spec connector, there would be a back shell that you would screw on here, whereas on the Autosports, you know, the back shell is built in. So on one hand, the Autosports are a little bit more expensive because they're higher density, but they also include the back shell built in, whereas here it's a separate piece from the mil-spec. So hopefully that helps some of y'all that haven't looked at this before, and also for those maybe that have looked at it, some of it. You know, this is another reason why these, you know, the labor times on these loom builds is so much money, because even if you're not twisting the loom, consensually twisting the loom, you still have, there's a lot of time in terminating these connectors. And that's one reason I tell people if they don't need the higher density of the Autosport, these mil-spec connectors are great. You know, they're a little bit easier to work with if you've never used one before. The tooling is a bit more common, you know, so don't sleep on the mil-spec stuff just because the Autosport's popular and is the most expensive. All of these connectors are fairly delicate before you plug them into their home on the vehicle. But I would also argue that the Autosports are even more delicate until they're hooked up. This is one of the reasons why when we did installations on our custom loom builds, we always wanted to make sure that we were doing the install, because a lot of times the mechanics are a connector's worst nightmare. You know, if someone goes to plug in one of these connectors and they don't have it all the way together when they go to cinch it down on the latch, with the twist you can shear off these, you know, shear these pins and, you know, add a lot of work trying to get it fixed. So